And now joining us to discuss the battle for sanity on campuses in North America, as well as this day of rage, is Michal Cotler-Wunsh, Israel's special envoy for combating anti-Semitism. Michal, thank you so much for joining us today. Let's begin with that campus situation at Harvard. We now see the university doubling down, suing the U.S. administration rather than stand up for their Jewish students and end the civil rights violations that they've really enabled. Do they have any claim here?
Well, I want to be very clear, Emily. It's, of course, not just about the Jewish students, about the lack of implementation of existing policies, not just at Harvard, but at universities across the world, in fact, enabling, as you've said, and fueling the tsunami of anti-Semitism that we have seen, and in many ways relinquishing the responsibility of universities to teach people how to think, replacing it with a very dangerous prospect of teaching students what to think, including at Ivy League universities.
Now, hundreds of student visas in the United States have already been canceled as a result of this crackdown on Hamas support on campus. And we're seeing a lot of pushback to these deportations or planned deportations with claims of free speech being violated. Your take?
Well, the appropriation of free speech in this context as well, of course, free speech does not include what is clearly conduct. And as I said, the violation of policies and of regulations and laws of the United States immigration laws. But what we have seen across campus, including the pictures you're showing now, is clearly conduct. The appropriation of speech to utilize this in order to be able to sanitize what is a clear violation of action, not speech, of action of violence, of harassment, of bullying, of tremendous vandalism, of course, the barring of Jewish and Israeli students or Zionist students. You need not be a Jew to be the target of this particularly lethal strain of anti-Semitism. You need just believe in Israel's right to exist. That bars those students and professors and administrators from equal access to whatever it is that they are supposed to be doing, whether it's receiving an education or researching or publishing and so on, as I said, including at Ivy League universities. And the failure of democracies to actually understand that what has happened is the utilization of academic spaces, including with what we know of as billions of dollars in foreign funding that have impacted not just, as I said, the appropriation of free speech to sanitize illegal conduct, but actually that have impaired academic freedom at those very institutions.
Now, I want to discuss, before I let you go, this day of rage. How can it be in 2025 that Jews and Israelis and their allies, as you mentioned, are being told to keep their heads down and hide their identity in order to live? I mean, what is the answer to this? What is the solution to this?
Well, Emily, in many, many ways, that is precisely this false moral equivalence or cowardice that has enabled the tsunami of anti-Semitism on and since October the 7th, across spaces and places that were unable to, on and since that day, unequivocally condemn the rape, the burning, the massacre, and the continued not only abduction, but holding of 59 Israelis that were abducted by a designated, prescribed terror organization, instead allowing these demonstrations that support a genocidal terror proxy, but one proxy of a genocidal, murderous Islamic regime in Iran that instead would have demanded the freeing of Gaza from Hamas, of Yemen from the Houthis, of Lebanon from Hezbollah, and of the people of Iran from the Islamic Republic, the regime in Iran. And that is what this day of rage represents. It represents an Orwellian inversion of fact and of law that has actually recognized the strengths of democracies in many spaces and places, not just university campuses, but online, on streets, in international institutions, and so on, and has appropriated those spaces and places in this moral and legal inversion to enable and fuel and, I'm going to say, embolden the genocidal terror proxies of that Islamic Republic of Iran and of all other actually authoritarian regimes that have reared their ugly heads as a result.
Well, let's hope that the current lawmakers and those who are monitoring the situation will crack down appropriately on these terror groups. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but I want to thank you, as always, for your excellent insight. Michal Cotler-Wunsh, Israel's special envoy for combating anti-Semitism. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily.